now to the United States, where Jewish leaders are said to have warned Israel over its incoming right-wing government. According to a report on the Axios news site, U.S. Jewish leaders held a meeting with senior Israeli officials at the embassy in Washington earlier this month. The contents of this meeting mainly pertained to policies that targeted LGBT Jews and members of non-Orthodox communities, issues that the leaders claimed could see American Jews protesting outside the embassy. And joining me now from New York to break this down is our senior U.S. correspondent, Mike Wagenheim. Mike, what more can you tell us about this report? And has there been a response from anyone in Israel, anyone in America for that matter, that's been sort of painting Israel's far-right government as really quite extreme?
There's been no response yet from the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Israeli embassy in Washington, meanwhile, has refused to comment on the report. This meeting purportedly took place on December the 7th, 2.5 weeks ago, according to the Axios and Walla websites. And within that meeting, several leaders of American Jewish organizations sat down with the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Diaspora Bureau, Shelley Davidovich. And it was described by people in the room and people familiar with the contents of that discussion as a very difficult atmosphere as American Jewish leaders laid down their concerns with a number of policy proposals that have been floated by members of this incoming government, the narrowing of criteria for Jewish immigration to Israel, laws dealing with LGBTQ rights among them as well, respect for reform and conservative movements of Judaism, which are the predominant movements of Judaism within the United States, and just an antagonistic atmosphere toward them. Yes, indeed, they did warn of potential protests in front of the Israeli embassy, but more so just warned that it's just going to be more difficult to bring young Jews into the fold if such legislation is passed, and it makes the job just that much more harder of these American Jewish leaders to garner support for Israel across the board. Again, no response yet from Israeli officials to that report.
Mike, it seems that what you mentioned, the more liberal Americans don't tend to understand that in a democracy like Israel, that's known as a Jewish democracy, they voted in this far-right government. A majority of people here in Israel voted them in. So surely this could sort of fall on the lines of overstepping or interfering with another country's politics. Why does the U.S. feel that it has the need to do this with Israel?
Well, keep in mind, this is not the U.S. government, although that's a separate conversation we can have about, yeah. But these are American Jewish leaders, and oftentimes Israeli officials go to American Jewish leaders to round up support for various initiatives, whether it's in the halls of the U.S. Congress, at the state or local levels, within the United Nations, where American Jewry often does valuable work. The thinking goes, well, you're coming to us for support, you're coming to us for help. Hey, we need the tools to be able to do it. And when you advance legislation like this, it's just a fact that it's going to make it that much harder. It's not saying these people shouldn't be in the government. It's just laying out the facts of what this really means in practice within the halls of Congress, within the halls of the United Nations here in the States. Keep in mind, again, as Israeli officials purportedly told these members of American Jewry in this meeting, take a wait-and-see approach. And as we've heard from American officials as well, we're not going to judge the new Israeli government by the personalities. We'll judge them by the policies. That was basically, apparently, the reaction of Israeli officials. Just wait and see how things go. Everything you're hearing in terms of rhetoric, in terms of the negotiations, in terms of campaign pledges, like here in America, doesn't always pan out that way. So everybody just kind of calm down and let's see what happens. Whether that actually calmed American Jewish leaders, not so sure about that. There's also a couple of things to emphasize here. Number one, we're getting down to the personalities. Who's going to be the foreign minister? One name being floated right now very strongly is Ron Dermer, the ex-ambassador to the United States, who has come out clearly and said that American Jewish support for Israel is secondary to support of evangelical Christians for reasons, we don't really have to get support of evangelical Christians. This is always there. We don't need to coddle to them the way we do American Jewry sometimes. And secondly, the diaspora minister, who is going to be appointed diaspora minister. And I think the seriousness or unseriousness with which the incoming government takes that appointment is going to send a signal here to American Jewry as well as to how seriously their concerns are going to be taken going forward.
And Mike, just briefly before we let you go, this wait-and-see approach, there was also a report, I think a week ago, that the Biden administration said that all policies are going to be blamed on Netanyahu as the captain of a right-wing ship. Do you think that that's a fair approach to take, and will that change the relationship between America and Israel?
Is it fair? I'm not sure if that's for me to say whether it's fair or not, but keep in mind, Prime Minister-designate Netanyahu went on American television speaking in English and said very clearly multiple times that, listen, the policy of the Israeli government begins with me, Benjamin Netanyahu, and ends with me. And everybody else making all the noise about how things are going to be run going forward, it's just noise. It starts with me, it ends with me. It's always been that way under my governments. Well, the Biden administration took note of that and said, okay, we're going to call you and only you when all of these problems arise. Keep in mind, that may be the way American Jewry deals with this as well. Benjamin Netanyahu has decades of experience, for better, worse, or anything in between, with American Jewry. His office might be getting a lot of these calls that otherwise would have gone to the ministries.
For better or worse, it seems the U.S. government is going to have to take that wait-and-see response. Senior U.S. correspondent Mike Wagenheim, thank you as always for your analysis.